stand together, we'll never fall. We can make a difference.
Well, hi there and welcome back to another episode of the All Around Growth. My name is Rob Kaiser and I am your host. Today is Sunday, July 2nd, 2023, and this is episode number 505 of a show where we talk about all around growth. And if you're new to the show, you may be wondering what all around growth is. And in my humble opinion, after doing 500 or so episodes of this show, I am of the opinion that all around growth is the pursuit of growth and development in all aspects of life: financial, physical, personal development, family, spiritual, social, and career, and trying to achieve balance in life. And what we're going to do today is do something that we haven't done in a while. I used to do this, which is read a daily reflection from a book called 365 Tao, Daily Meditations. The author is Deng Dao. And moreover, one thing that I'm going to do today is just free talk a little bit and provide an update regarding what's been going on in life, what's been going on here at the farm, here on the homestead, and provide you guys with a little snapshot of what's been keeping me busy, because being busy and having a lot of work going on is part of the reason why I haven't released any content in the form of podcasts, and really haven't released any content in the form of anything since June 19th rather, when I recorded an episode, and that was episode number 504, titled Record-Breaking Sales. So, with that said, let's go ahead and look at and read the daily meditation for the day. If you've got the book, 365 Tao by Deng Dao, this is page 183, or the 183rd day of the year. Like I said, it is July 2nd, 2023, and the title of today's reading is Middle. And for those of you, again, who don't know, this book is a treasury of life-enhancing daily readings that turns a wise Taoist light on every facet of life. Each daily entry begins with a one-word title and its Chinese character in elegant calligraphy, and a brief poetic aphorism provides the theme, followed by a clear, insightful meditation on the day's Taoist principles. So the title of today's reading is Middle, and a brief poetic aphorism, or the brief poetic aphorism, reads as follows: those who attain the middle dominate the whole. And finally, the clear, insightful meditation on the day's Taoist principle reads as follows: today is the 183rd day. It is exactly the middle day out of 365. Once you reach the center of anything, you can dominate the whole in any way you please. In chess, those who gain the middle board are usually in the superior position. In a storm, those who reach the eye are safe. In making decisions, those who cleave to the center are wise. There are 182 days on either side of today to make a year. There is no center day in an even-numbered period. It is the odd-numbered set that has a center. It is the odd-numbered set that is dynamic. In all areas of life, it is good to establish goals and parameters. Define the scope of anything that you do. That way, you will know when you have reached the center, and perseverance will be easier. And boy, if this reading couldn't be any more appropriate or fitting for today, I don't know what could be. So let's hit the road and talk about an update. But before we talk about an update, I'm going to talk about why I think this particular reading is fitting and appropriate for not only today, but this period in my life as a whole. It's appropriate for today because, like I said, today is Sunday, July 2nd, and I am on the road. Obviously, for those of you who are listening, you can hear the road noise in the background. You can hear the ignition of the key on the startup, and this is kind of a throwback to the old days when I first started recording podcasts in the first place. And I wanted to make sure that I released a podcast in some way, shape, or form this weekend, but again, it's been busy, and if I don't make the time to do this, I'm not going to do this. And that's what happened last week. I didn't make the time to do this, so I didn't do it. And because I'm going to church now, I figured why not stack functions in true permaculture fashion, right? And take advantage of the time that I have, which is normally spent doing nothing other than driving and perhaps listening to a little bit of music, or just simply driving in silence and collecting my thoughts for the day and preparing for church. Usually I leave a little bit earlier than I do now. For whatever it's worth, at the time of this recording, at the time that I speak, it is 9:54 a.m. and the liturgy starts at 10:30 a.m. and usually there is a brief, well, it's not a brief, but it's an hour long. There is a prayer service, a matin service, or sometimes called a vespers service, or for those Greek folks out there, orthos, if my pronunciation is correct. But quite frankly, at the church I go to, I don't even know what we call it, but I refer to it as the matin service, and that starts at 9:30. So usually I'm on the road by 8:30, but today I'm simply leaving now because this is what I chose to do. I slept in late this morning because Thursday night I was up until 1 a.m. chopping cabbage and getting ready to make or prepare over 100 pounds of Napa cabbage for several batches of regular kimchi or one large batch, I should say, which was packed into 3 vessels of regular kimchi, and a larger batch that was approximately 20 pounds of cabbage for a vegan kimchi, which is something that we began making. The first experiment I made was back in March, early March, before Dad was diagnosed with cancer due to customer request, and I finally packed it up this week and was pleasantly surprised with how it turned out. And the difference between vegan kimchi and regular kimchi is the fact that there is no fish sauce in the vegan kimchi. And maybe I will talk more about that later. But Friday night, I was up until 2 in the morning finishing off the last of the kimchi and the making process. The day Friday was very, very busy. I took the dog to the vet. I packed some curtido, labeled the curtido, prepared the cash boxes, got everything ready for market as best I could that day, and fielded a couple phone calls from some friends who were going through some hard times right now, and ultimately made the kimchi. And that is kind of a laborious and time-intensive process. So, but once I've started, I can't really stop it, especially when there's a market Saturday, July 1st, and so I was committed. And by the time I finished it, it was a little after 1 in the morning, but I still had some cleanup to do, and I can't really let that go, because then cleanup when you've got all of your stuff dried on your, mixing tubs and dishes and things like that, then everything gets crusty, and cleanup is a nightmare. Ask me how I know. So it's best to clean up in the kitchen while making sauerkraut and kimchi immediately after the fact, because it is simply a lot easier. So by the time last night rolled around, we got back from the market around 2:30. My brother-in-law came over because my dad's truck is having significant problems. The bracket holding the leaf spring to the frame has completely rotted out. The leaf spring is pushing through the bed of the truck, which is rotting out. And my brother-in-law came over to help us take a look at it, kind of, just talk shop with us and see what we should do. So we've finally reached the conclusion that the best thing to do is probably sell the truck just as is. We're not putting any more work into it, and we are going to look at buying a van. Luckily, he's got some connections with guys that buy vehicles and equipment, primarily vehicles, through auction sites, and he's been able to get a number of good deals. So over the course of the next few weeks, few months, we are going to look at a cargo van and utilize that for market, which will be a big upgrade. It will be enclosed. We won't have to unload, because basically every time we go to market, we have to load the truck, unload the truck at market, set up, break down, load the truck, and then unload the truck when we get home. Moving forward, if we've got an enclosed van, we can keep the majority of the market materials in the truck and not have to worry about loading the truck, unloading the truck, and doing this and that. That will save time and also facilitate, future work on the homestead when it comes to picking up construction materials and things like that for whatever projects we're working on. Framing out additional rooms in the basement of the cabin, creating Mom's soap laboratory, finishing that off, shelving in the barn. We'll still be able to fit 4x8 sheets of plywood, 8-foot standard studs, whatever in that van. It will be great, and I will still have my truck, my old 25-year-old 3/4 ton pickup. So for the interim, we're going to have to use that for the market, and I'm going to have to get a different drop hitch so we can, dropped receiver, so we can haul oh my goodness, I'm drawing a blank. The refrigerator, the mobile refrigerator that we are required to use in the county of Medina, Ohio. So yeah, the last few days have consisted of a lot of long nights. So I went to bed early last night, despite the fact that the neighbors were setting off fireworks. And at some point, I think I was just exhausted enough to where I just fell asleep. Whether or not I continued to hear the fireworks, I don't know, or whether they simply just stopped, I don't know. But I was physically exhausted, so I slept for a long time last night, and I got up. And when I got up, I realized that I was still, my back has been hurting me, and there's been some pain in my low back. And I've realized that since I've taken on this new career, if you will, that I am considerably less active than I used to be. When I was working for Davis Tree Farm, working in inventory and doing the things that I used to do, I was considerably more active. I was walking a lot more. I was a lot of the work that I did consisted of putting tags on trees and plants. So I was bending over, I was reaching, I was just a lot more physically active. And for a number of years, this pain in my body, specifically in my lower back, had subsided to a certain extent. And on top of that, I was considerably more active with regard to stretching and just physical health and well-being. Over the past 6 months, there have been some significant changes in life, including but not limited to my dad's battle with cancer and his passing, and the caretaking that consisted with all of that. And there's just been a lot of change over the past 6 months, and a lot of change over the past year or so since leaving my job in May of 2022. So a lot of my routines have changed. It's taken some time to get settled in and form new routines. And over that time, a lot of bad habits have developed. And ultimately, over the past 6 months, a lot of good habits have developed in order to take the place of the bad habits that developed over the first 6 months. So there's been a lot of balance in life, a lot of trying to regain balance, find new routines, learn how to navigate the world of self-employment. And yes, I am self-employed. I operate as an independent contractor, essentially, for my family's business. I am essentially contract labor and in charge of production and sales for the fermented food and all food operation, but we are scaling out of pickles. In large part, we might continue to do lacto-fermented, fully fermented sours because the brine is able to be utilized for the mustard that we make, a lacto-fermented mustard, which has been quite popular. And we'll get into maybe some market updates in a future episode with regard to product development, what we're doing and why, what we're not going to do and why, products that we're going to discontinue and things like that. But yeah, today's reading and the inspiration for this reading to read from 365 Tao comes from the fact that, well, first of all, when I woke up, getting back to this whole back pain thing, I decided that, and I've been doing this with some degree of consistency, at least in the mornings and sometimes during the evenings at night. But I tell you what, it's tough to try and squeeze in some journaling and some stretching when you're up until beyond midnight, because by the time you've wrapped up the work for the day, at least in my case, all I really want to do is wind down a little bit and get to bed. Now, winding down could certainly consist of journaling and stretching, but my wind down routines still consist of some bad habits, like eating some junk food and either reading a book or watching stupid YouTube shorts on my phone. And these are not the most productive things that I can be doing. But again, these are habits that I've formed and habits that I'm now trying to break and change. So today what I did was instead of doing the normal stretching routine, I decided to break out the foam roller, and I reconfigured my entire office space, put the couch back in the bedroom because my bedroom is just a little bit too large the way we constructed it. But a lot of the construction had to do with the location of the drains in the floor and so on and so forth. So I'm making the best of what I can do in my small space. So I put the couch back there because I felt like I didn't need to have the couch out front, because I would lay down on the couch and get lazy and watch TV. So I put the couch back there. So if I'm sitting on the couch or relaxing on the couch, I'm reading a book, engaging my mind, and I moved all of my exercise mats up into the front room so that if I'm doing something involving the TV, that something is usually, watching follow-along videos on stretchings. But today I decided to do some follow-along videos with the foam roller and really work out my calves. Just do a full body workout, but more focused on my calves, my hamstrings, my quads, and my hip flexors, because I've come to learn, to the best of my understanding, and I could be wrong, but I believe that my back pain, my lower back pain, is largely due to the fact that my muscles in my legs are tight and have tightened up significantly. And that is drawing my pelvis out of alignment and subsequently creating some pressure on my lower back, which results in pain. So it's not so much that I have it's not so much that the pain in my lower back is due to, something directly related to my back. No, everything is connected. And it's, in my humble opinion, due to the fact that the muscles in my legs have, for lack of a better term, atrophied and degenerated over the past year. And probably dating back to the winter of 2021, 2022, when I actually started, forming my exit strategy and putting together training material and spending a lot of time on the computer at work for the person who is going to be my replacement, the person that I was going to train. And so I was considerably less mobile. I've been less mobile over the past 18 months. And that, when that happens, things change fast. It takes a lot of time to get into shape, but I think it takes even less time to get out of shape. And, it's easy to maintain your physical condition once you're somewhat in shape, as long as you do a little bit of work and do it consistently. But when you simply stop, you go into a rapid state of decline, and that happens very quickly. And if you're consistent with your inactivity, then you continue to decline more rapidly. And I think that is applicable to, how we manage our finances. In this case, how we manage our physical health and well-being, how we manage and approach our personal development, our relationships with our family, our spiritual life, our social life, and ultimately our career. Small amounts of work, or simply work consistently, allows for progress and continued success in all areas of our life, those 7 different aspects of life. And any decline in those areas allows for and facilitates stagnation and decline in those areas. So, so how does this lead to, how does foam rolling lead to 365 Tao? Well, at the end of the video, if you're familiar with YouTube, you have and see, whether it's on your phone, whether it's on your desktop, or whether you're using the YouTube app through something like Apple TV on your television, you see suggested videos to watch. And one of the ones that I decided to watch and play in the background while I continued to, get ready for church, feed the dog and do these things, was a shaolin motivational speech or something to that effect. I forget the title, but you know how YouTube titles are, like Shaolin Best Motivational Speech for 2023, and I thought, okay, well, let's see what this has to do with whatever. And a lot of the motivational things that I like to and have historically listened to have been things like Earl Nightingale, audio recording from the 1950s, The Strangest Secret. That was something that I heard from Dan Miller, author of 48 Days to the Work and Life You Love, and the 7 aspects of life that I've previously talked about: financial, physical, personal development, family, spiritual, social, and career. The 7 areas of life that I previously mentioned come from Dan Miller, come from his goal setting guide, which I've talked about at length in previous episodes and linked to that in previous episodes. And, you know, as I go back and update the show notes for this particular episode today, I will link to, or do my best to link to, everything that I've discussed today. So as I'm listening to this Shaolin monk, I presume, talk about balance and success and everything else, you know, I heard him make very good points like this. Throughout the course of our lives, we have the same amount of exhales as we do inhales. You know, in terms of our breathing, we breathe out as much as we breathe in. There is as much daytime as there is nighttime. The more we push something away, the more inevitably over time we pull it back to us. And so life is constantly this cyclical event that occurs, and finding balance in this life is something that is critical to do. And as I'm listening to, you know, some Shaolin monk wisdom, I'm inevitably brought back to my interest in Taoism. And my interest in Taoism also reflects what my current, or is also in line with my current spiritual journey. And yes, I think that the way in which I am approaching it now, attending Christian church, the Orthodox Church specifically, and with regularity, very much consists of a synergy with Taoism, because within Orthodoxy there is, you know, what we do is we embrace the beauty of the mystery. There is no understanding of God, the infinite creator. You can't understand that which creates and is wholly responsible for everything that's come before, everything right now, everything that will be, you know, because God simply is. And a very long time ago, as I've struggled with my concepts of God, Christianity, and really embraced the thought processes within Taoism, I realized that God is Tao, but Tao is not God. And that was kind of the pinnacle of my understanding regarding spirituality. God is Tao, but Tao is not God. Kind of like this simple analogy. All bourbons are whiskey, but not all whiskeys are bourbons, right? So this much I knew, but beyond that, I knew little else. So nevertheless, as I'm listening to this Shaolin monk talk about balance and life and success and goals and this and that, and it's really good. And I only was able to watch or listen to in the background about 15 minutes or 20 minutes of this video, which appeared to be at least 2 hours long. And this is undoubtedly something that I'm going to be listening to again in the future, because I think there's a lot of wisdom therein. But I thought, you know, because I'm listening to a Shaolin monk, I'm mentally hearing things that are bringing me back to my previous history with the study of Taoism and reading a lot of those classic works like the Tao Te Ching and the writings of Chuang Tzu, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, who wrote something that the title of his classic work escapes me now, but you can read both of these in a book called The Essential Tao by Thomas Cleary. And one final word on this, as I continue to approach my final destination and how this relates to Christianity, is in my studies of the history of the church and the history of the Orthodox Church specifically, reading a book called The Orthodox Church by Timothy Ware. I have also come across a book that was introduced to me called Christ, the Essential Tao. And that was a book that was brought to my attention through a podcast called Our Life in Christ, which is essentially the recorded radio show by the same name in the early 2000s, early mid-2000s, that was recorded and released into a podcast later on. And it is done by a couple of maybe a priest and a layman within the Orthodox Church, a church in Arizona, an Antiochian Orthodox Church, Antiochian Orthodox Church, if you will. And it's no coincidence, in my humble opinion, that the church that I finally decided to attend and call my church home is an Antiochian Orthodox Church. Really the church where all churches began, because we read in the Bible, in the book of Acts, that people were first referred to as Christians in the city of Antioch. But I digress. So I decide to record an episode on the road, and I pull out 365 Tao, and we read that today is indeed the 183rd day of the year. And as I previously mentioned, the brief poetic aphorism read, "Those who attain the middle dominate the whole." And then as we read in the meditation, that today is the 183rd day, precisely the middle of the year. And this monk had talked about how oftentimes every year we set goals and we do this and we do that and try to improve ourselves, but we lose sight of what we're doing. And the key is finding balance and not simply living to achieve things, but living in the moment and making the best of everything all the time and being happy with exactly what we have. And we read in the meditation that once we reach the center of anything, you can dominate the whole. And I don't think life is necessarily about domination, but I think in this context, we can read domination of life being simply balance and finding balance in life. And if we're balanced in life, we're not worried about the past. We're not anxious about the future. We don't live in fear. We're not dominated by fear. We end up dominating fear itself. And when we do that, we can be present, we can be here, we can be now, we can live in the moment, truly live in the moment, and we can be centered. And ultimately we read, in making decisions, those who cleave to the center are wise. And seeking wisdom is something that I think that we can do. When we seek wisdom, we find truth. When we find truth, we find God. And I think that having a very clear understanding of how our spiritual life is essential to finding balance in our entire life, then and only then can we begin to understand what life is all about. And once we have a better understanding of what life is all about, then all of a sudden amazing things start happening. So, not only today do we understand that the key to life is finding balance, but it is essentially the middle of the year, truly balanced in terms of the, calendar year, which really in and of itself is not even real. It's just this man-made construct to put some sort of metric to time, which doesn't even exist. Again, is just some sort of linear man-made construct so that we can engage in the activities of life, primarily involving commerce, right? So we also read that in all areas of life, it's good to establish goals and parameters and to define the scope of anything that you do. That way, in doing so, you will know when you have reached the center, and perseverance will be easier. And for me, over the past couple of weeks, it's been difficult for me to understand this and persevere. Life has been really good. Business has been really good. As a matter of fact, I am literally sold out of everything that I have. I had no jalapeno cilantro kraut to bring to the market. I had no lemon dill sauerkraut to bring to the market. I've had no traditional to bring to the market. I've been sold out of that and have actively been working to make and pack, or to make and begin batches of all of this. All of the curtido that I brought to the market, I sold out of. All of the beet kraut I brought to the market, I sold out of. All of the kimchi I brought to the market, I sold out of. I brought some vegan kimchi, which was a brand new thing that we debuted this Saturday, and I sold out of everything that I brought to the market. I brought a case of it and I sold it all. Luckily, I left 6 jars at home because I want to give one to my friend Vinny at church, who is a vegetarian and is very interested in kimchi, but doesn't wish to eat the kimchi because it has fish sauce in it. So I've brought a jar to him to gift to him for his feedback and see what he thinks about it. And with all of the late nights and everything else, I've wondered how I can find balance. And not only that, I've committed to a wholesale customer, a wholesale restaurant who is going to be buying gallons at a time. Luckily, we're only going to start with one so he can test out a new item that he's added to the menu, which is a kimchi hot dog. And, there's just a lot going on, but finding balance is key. And I'm going to have to wrap this up right now because I just pulled into the parking lot, and this 40-minute episode of the show has turned into something it went by much more quickly than I originally expected, because there's a lot to talk about, guys, but there's also a lot that I think we need to do in order to find balance in life, to be happy. And happiness, true happiness in life, is what makes life worth living. So with that, guys, I look forward to the next update with you. I very much appreciate you tuning in to today's show. I hope that you have a great week ahead. This is Rob Kaiser, and thank you.
In a world of pain, what can I do? The needs are many and answers a few. People turn away, and I wonder why. It that we can help.